Hey guys!
Welcome back.
Today we are talking about homelessness in Starkville because we've seen a decline in the state of Mississippi over the past few years, but we've also seen an increase in a lack of affordable housing, but also just temporary housing for those who just need it for a couple of months or something like that. So today we're just going to talk about general homelessness in Starkville and kind of the resources that they have, or the resources that people who are, facing homelessness have, and just kind of the issue that Starkville has at the moment. So in 2019, Starkville's population was 59,280 people, and the poverty rate was 28.7%, according to a U.S. data site. So having like 28.7%, which is over a quarter of the population facing poverty, and also seeing that there's a lack of affordable housing in Starkville, certainly calls for a lot of issues, and alarms are kind of raised, especially through nonprofit groups like Starkville Strong and The Village. We see a lot of concern for, what are people going to do if they just, end up being homeless? Because I've heard a lot of people say that a lot of people, you're just a couple steps away from being homeless, especially if you just got, furloughed from your job or something like that because of COVID. So we see that there is, in the Mississippi, we have a homelessness rate of 1,107 people who are experiencing homelessness on any given day. And that's the U.S. Interagency Council of Homelessness stating that as of January 2020. So that is a low number, and it has lowered by about 900 people over the past few years, but it's still like 1,000 people who do not have a place to lay their head at night, and there's not really that many resources.
Yeah, especially in this time where it's colder weather. Not that it's any more enjoyable in warm weather, because Mississippi is hot like 24/7, but when the times that it is cold, there's not anywhere for you to go, because there's so many anti-homeless structures put in place to prevent that kind of area and safe havens that you even may be able to find.
Yeah. And going along with that, we do have some shelters, but they're mainly in Jackson. I think we have 2 or 3 shelters, but we don't have one in Starkville, and we're going to get to that a little bit later. So the reason why we're seeing a rise in homelessness, or at least a rise in risk of homelessness, or people who are at risk of homelessness, is because of the aftermath of the Catherine Street and Brooksville Gardens evictions, which both happened in summer 21. Many long-term Starkville residents face concerns over their housing needs. There's an article from the Columbus Dispatch by Tyler B. Jones talking about Brooksville Gardens. So Brooksville Gardens is one of the few affordable housing complexes in Starkville. It's rented out, and the residents of buildings 4, 5, and 8 were evicted back in May 2021 because Starkville aldermen voted to demolish the buildings due to water damage, broken windows, weak floors, roof damage, mold, and mildew. A quote from the article says that Code Enforcement Officer Sarah Perez and building official Stein McMullen told aldermen they thoroughly examined these buildings 6 different times this year and found conditions unsuitable for public health. Obviously, if it's affordable housing, you're living there because you simply have to. Like, there's no other place for you to live, because especially if those conditions were that bad, you don't really want to be living somewhere like that. But I did read in the article that a lot of residents didn't think that their particular unit was that bad, because they did demolish units 4, 5, and 8, so like the entire block of units. That makes sense. So some people found that their apartment wasn't necessarily, but then I saw pictures of other units where the ceiling had literally caved in due to like mold and mildew, and it just kind of like the water pressure was caving it in. It was really disgusting. Going on, the article said that during the meeting of the Board of Aldermen, Perez and McMullen presented interior photos of the apartments in questions, including a molded Boeing ceiling in the first floor unit. That's exactly what I was just talking about. So the ceiling had the potential to fall through due to the weight of the dilapidated unit above it, which would endanger the residents of both, is what the article says. So there's just a lot of public safety, which is also very concerning, because just because you're living in an affordable housing unit doesn't mean that your safety should be compromised, or that the place that you're living should be at risk for something like that. I feel like that stuff doesn't happen overnight. Like mold, mildew, all that type of stuff grows over time. So if they are properly taken care of, we probably wouldn't see something like that. But that could just be like me as an outsider just observing something like that.
I just find it interesting that they didn't have anywhere for these people to go, because like whenever they were building apartments, like the Vista, they weren't quite done at the start of the school year whenever they had them done, and they put them up in hotels for the time that they weren't able to be there. So it's like, well, they could do that for students, and then there's just more and more student housing, which usually is built cheaply, but it's still an area to live. So it's like, why can't we put these people in those places?
Yeah. See, I don't know. And Vice Mayor Roy A. Perkins, he represents Ward 6, where Brooksville Gardens was. He said that the 3 buildings represented slums. He said, quote, "The buildings are completely dilapidated to the extent that demolition should occur." So those residents had nowhere else to go, like we were just saying, because also Brooksville Gardens, the property manager said, if I had another unit or I had other units to put these people in, I would. But they didn't. There were no other units at the same complex. And Mayor Spruill said that she and her team would work on a way to find housing for the residents. Ward 4, Alderman Jason Walker wanted the city to find housing for the residents. So I haven't really heard any updates on Brooksville Gardens recently. It's kind of stepped out of the limelight. If I do have anything, I can link it in the show notes, but we can also do an update in the next episode or anything like that if I find something else. But as for that, I don't really know where those people are at the moment. I do know that Starkville Strong has a program called Adoptive Family, where you can adopt a family who's at risk of homelessness, and you can house them for a while and help them to find a job and find more permanent housing so then they can, move out. But I guess some people went there, but also they might have had to stay in hotels. They might have had to apply for homelessness or they might have had to be homeless and live in their cars or live on the streets. But yeah. So next we have the Catherine Street evictions, which occurred in August 2021 when all 61 residents were asked to evict the apartments due to unsafe living conditions. And it happened the same day that the Supreme Court ruled that landlords may not evict people during the pandemic. So they had a notice, and it was posted on residents' doors, giving them just days to move out and find another home. After legal battles, the move-out time was extended into a 3-section plan, with some move-outs happening in mid to late September and mid-October. So the property management of Catherine Street switched over from one brand to another, and this new brand was the one that decided to go ahead and evict these people, even though a lot of them had already paid back rent, where they had paid maybe from May to September, so they should have been guaranteed their spot there because they had paid, but they were asked to evict. And it's been a very long process trying to find more permanent housing for those folks, or at least just long-term housing or a shelter to stay in. I mentioned the Adoptive Family Program, and that was really beneficial in the case of Catherine Street. That's when we saw a lot of outcry from the public. And I wrote an article on this. That's why I'm very knowledgeable, by the way. I'm not just like over here
spouting off.
So this is knowledge, my personal research. And yeah, so we don't have a homeless shelter in Starkville. So I had an interview with Mayor Spruill on November 29th, 2021. And I asked her a few questions about ARPA money, American Rescue Act. And I also asked her a few questions about homelessness and kind of mutual aid programs like that. I asked if in Starkville there was any other monetary programs besides RAMP, which is rental assistance for Mississippians, and MUTE, which is Mississippi United to End Homelessness, and she said there were no other programs. So RAMP and MUTE are programs where they can basically give you money, or they can sort of help you find affordable housing, and they have a special letter that you can give to your landlord. And we have those two programs, but also something that I've learned through talking to Starkville Strong people, volunteers, leaders, is that in order to qualify for RAMP, or I think it might have been MUTE, one of them, you basically had to actually be homeless, living in your car or living on the streets. You couldn't be paying for yourself to live at a hotel. You couldn't be staying with a friend or family. You literally had to be in the car on the streets. And we don't really have anybody, fortunately, in Starkville who's on the streets or in their cars, which is what some Starkville Strong people said. But we do have people who are living with their aunts and uncles, who are living with, relatives, or who are living with people in Starkville who reached out a helping hand, or they're staying in hotels. Unless they're not paying for the hotel themselves, like if Starkville Strong paid for it, then they would qualify for homelessness. So it's a very kind of narrow gap. I just was asking to see if there's anything else that would kind of extend or close in the gap in a way that Starkville residents would be able to find more temporary housing. But anyway, so that was kind of a long-winded answer to that. But that was not her, that was me. We all know how long-winded I can be sometimes. And additionally, Mayor Sproul said that she and the city have no plans to put a homeless shelter in Starkville. So going back to Catherine Street, originally the leaders of Starkville Strong and volunteers and just kind of people who all were involved in the Catherine Street, like helping the residents and the victims, were planning on building a facility in Maben, Mississippi. They were going to transform the West Oktibbeha County High School into a short-term homeless shelter / affordable housing. I don't think it was exactly a homeless shelter, but it would be more affordable housing. It was not intended to be long-term, but it was a little bit longer than short-term. But those plans are kind of being reworked, and I actually want to have an interview to talk about that in the next coming week or two, so I can, talk a little bit more about that in a special episode. But basically, we don't have a homeless shelter here in Starkville. That's what it all kind of boils down to. We're a pretty big city, 59,000 people. We have a university. We don't have a homeless shelter.
Did she say why they didn't have plans to put one here?
Yes. I asked Mayor Sproul if any money was going to be placed toward homelessness assistance, and she said there were no plans for money from the general fund to go towards it because she believes that the faith-based organizations are generally the best at assisting people facing homelessness and have the most contacts with those in need. So
okay.
she said that the organizations need to team up together to find a way to assist the homeless and find a shelter.
Okay, well, I have thoughts about that I won't relay, but I wonder why they couldn't at least try to, do something. It doesn't have to be a permanent housing kind of situation, but, okay, we talked about this kind of similar before of having, a space for people to go.
Yeah.
Not necessarily long-term, but, in one of our opinion articles, we talked about transforming the old Vowels building into a community center. Well, that could kind of go into not only just a community center, but you could have some temporary housing for people, some rooms for them to be able to stay, or beds at least.
Yeah, see, that would be really ideal.
I feel like that would be nice, because then not only are you helping them have a shelter, you can also help them with, cultivating certain skills in order to, be able to find a way to get out of that area.
Right. Plus, the idea in Maben also is kind of short-lived because it is 20 minutes away from Starkville. So if you don't have a car, you don't have a way to get to and from work. And the SMART bus doesn't go up there, but the school, the county buses would. So the kids could get picked up for school and stuff and dropped off. But the adults, unless they had a car, they wouldn't be able to travel.
Since Vowels is in the middle of everything,
exactly, that's what I was thinking.
You could add it to the list of the SMART buses.
There already is a SMART bus stop at Vowels.
Well, there you go.
So it would just solve homelessness.
Then you wouldn't have to worry about people having a car.
It's right there because Starkville High School is right across the street almost from Vowels. It's in a very good location, I think. It's close to jobs and restaurants and stuff like that.
Exactly. And if people didn't want to take the bus, they could still probably walk to a decent amount of stuff. I know we're working on getting some more sidewalks other places. But...
Yeah. And it's not too far away from downtown if you go through the back roads. If you just, go back there. So...
just a thought.
Yeah. But Mayor Sproul said they have no plans to put a homeless shelter in Starkville. So Kate Van Helsema, who is the founder of The Village, which is a nonprofit in Starkville, said she has turned to the city many times to request funding for a homeless shelter or funding for the facility in Maben, but she has been turned down each time. So she decided to turn to the county to ask for money. But again, like I said, we're kind of at a pause because they are rethinking the Maben decision. So once I get the knowledge on that, I will spread it with you guys, and there will also be an article about it. Yay, knowledge. But yeah, no plans for a homeless shelter, no plans for any program to benefit the homeless, anything like that. A place or a type of money, I guess, that can be used on the homeless is the Arpa Fund. So Arpa is the American Rescue Program, or American Rescue Act, and every city in America got it, and also every county and every state. So they all got different levels of money. Originally, the city of Starkville received $6.2 million from the American Rescue Act, and $5.5 million of which was going to be devoted to parks. Basically, finishing up Cornerstone Park and then just kind of redoing other parks, making them better. And when I was talking to Mayor Spruill originally about this in November, she said that parks would benefit the greatest number of people. She said, quote, "Parks are used by the whole community. You're not picking and choosing who to give the money. You're focusing on the entire community's opportunity to use public assets." Right? So we had this idea, or I guess she had this idea, the town had this idea, like, okay, we're going to devote this to parks. It was, you know, pretty much not set in stone, but it was to a certain point, you know, like that's what we were talking about. That was the interview. We talked about that. It wasn't just like hearsay, you know? So it's like, that's what they were planning to do, right? Well, then yesterday when I was doing my research, I was on the Columbus Dispatch website, and there's another article, a brand new article talking about ARPA funds being reconsidered to spend on projects other than parks. So that's what we're going to talk about now. It's written by Tyler B. Jones. Thank you, Queen. 2 articles in this podcast. Doing the work. So on January 14th in the Board of Aldermen session, they approved an expansion of allowable expenditures for the city's ARPA funds, which includes a build grant on Highway 182 infrastructure project and Main Street improvements. Also with the parks money, so $5.5 million of $6.2 million was going to parks, which is a lot of money for parks. And it left about $0.7 million, a cool $700,000, which went to the hiring of 2 new officers for Starkville Police Department and $200,000 to address water issues at the Northgate subdivision in Starkville.
$500,000 for 2 people?
Yeah, so it's their salaries for 2 years.
Okay.
Or no, until 2025, yeah.
Okay, well that makes a little more sense. I was like, damn, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, if you divide it out, it's actually not that much money.
Okay, I was thinking that was like for a year.
No.
At first, I was like,
they have to spend all this money by either 2024 or 2025. So then the federal government had a final ruling that said that ARPA money can be spent on broadband and infrastructure improvements. And it says those projects don't have to fall into an undeserved community. So basically, we don't just have to help those in need. We can also just generally improve areas. So then Mayor Spruill was like, okay, we're going to do different projects other than the original parks plan. And then Lieutenant Governor Hoseman said that he has a program, or he intends to have a program where it matches ARPA funds. Starkville would get 6.2 times 2, $12.4 million. That is a lot of money.
I think we could do a little bit more of helping people.
Mm-hmm.
With that money, if that's the case.
Yeah. Like what an article from Spruill says, "We had been fairly narrow when we decided how to allocate funds, so this allows us to have the full opportunity for use of funds that the final rule allows for." They basically only divided up the funds into 3 ways: parks, police officers, and infrastructure, water, sewage. And now they're like, okay, we're going to spread it open more. And then she said that the city can obtain the most amount of matching dollars possible by prioritizing projects relating to water, sewer, broadband, and infrastructure rather than parks and recreation. So in order to get approved for Delbert Hoseman's program, I think she was like, we need to do something that's more transformative than just parks.
I mean, parks are nice, but at least we still have some green space, whether it's officially a park or not.
Yeah, and we have pretty nice parks, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like aren't green spaces around here. So,
yeah,
I don't think it's that in much of a dire need for that at the moment.
Yeah. A big part of the new ARPA plan is for the Build Grant project, which makes Highway 182 into a more pedestrian-friendly and wheelchair-accessible streetscape, which is very exciting because 182 is not at all. There are no sidewalks that actually go down 182. There are in the neighborhoods, but not just down that way. So that'll be really nice. And then there's broadband access that's going to be improved, and infrastructure and stormwater drainage. And yeah, so there's going to be a $12.66 million federal grant funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation's Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development Transportation Discretionary Grant Program.
That is way too long.
Who had to come up with that? Like, imagine, like, I'm so sorry to whoever had to come up with that.
That is way too long.
It's way too long.
What thesaurus were they using for this? You know they're so picky about certain words for passing things. I can't remember if this was, I think it was just from a TV show, but I honestly can't remember. Mm-hmm. And it was like this person sending things, but it was a TV show, it was The Crown. They kept sending stuff to the Queen, but she didn't like the word that they had in order to pass it. So they had to keep going through and be like, what about this word? What about this word? And they had like a whole group of people trying to get a specific word just for the name of the act to pass it. So I think that's why that thing is so long and has so weird wording.
Yeah. So, looks like parks are, in the rearview mirror. We're moving on to something else. I do wish that some money was going to be going towards homelessness and those at risk of homelessness, because also that does help people, and I think that's a good enough reason to get matched for funds.
I think so too, yeah.
So that's our topic about homelessness today. Again, we will have updates. There's always updates on stuff like this because it's never just like done.
Yeah, one thing fixes all. That kind of thing. No.
So once I learn more information and once just like stories and stuff like that progress, we'll know more. So I'm hoping to have a nice update for you guys soon. But speaking of updates, we have...
Next transition.
I know, we've been really doing it. We have several story updates.
Yeah, we had a lot of updates this week, so...
Everything just happened at once.
Buckle up.
Number one, MSU people. The vaccine mandate at MSU seems to be blocked. So the Supreme Court blocked President Biden's vaccine mandate for large federal employees on January 13th, 2022. And it affects MSU since MSU employees are federal employees. So it looks like a vaccine mandate will not be likely here.
Yeah, so since we receive state funding, we are technically federal. So that was over just employees, not students at that time. But it's been blocked. So it's not there anymore.
Yeah, so there we go. And then next, teacher pay. We are going to have a whole separate episode on this. But as for now, Lieutenant Governor Hosemann and Senate Education Chair DeBar revealed their teacher pay proposal, which raised teacher salaries by $4,300 over 2 years. It also plans to reform how teachers are paid so they can receive higher wages long term. So that's really exciting. It's way better than what we were talking about originally, which was, I think, a $3,000 raise over 3 years or something like that. Or maybe it was a $1,000 raise a year. But this is the biggest number for sure that we've seen.
Yeah, as you know, we talked a little bit about this in the salary episode, so we'll get more into that on another one.
Yeah. So again, this is still going on, and this was in the Senate. So next, it goes from the House to the Senate, then it goes to Governor Reeves' desk. So we'll see what he says about this. The Mississippi Senate just passed the Mississippi Medical Cannabis Act last week. The law, as explained by Senator Kevin Blackwell, will be to give approved patients 3.5 grams of marijuana up to 7 times a week. This act did not lower the recommended amount as Governor Reeves wished. So Governor Reeves said that he doesn't want people having up to 11 joints a day or something like that.
I know he was really wanting to lower it just because he didn't want to, as they've said before, too much on the streets.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And he was actually thinking about vetoing it if they didn't lower it, so.
And they didn't. So, we'll see. At least it got to the Senate, so please, let's just get it on going. An article from Mississippi Public Broadcasting by Covey Vance said, more amendments are expected to be proposed when the bill is taken up by the House in the coming weeks and could face a veto by the governor who does not approve of the daily allotment of marijuana through the program. So, wait, I thought it was House, Senate, then governor.
I'm not really sure. I thought it was too, but maybe they have been going over a lot of stuff lately. Maybe they're just switching it up. I don't know.
Yeah, because the House did teacher pay first, then the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
I know that for sure. Okay.
And then it was the House for redistricting, too.
Yeah, and then the Senate.
Yeah. I don't know.
On the next episode, Heather and Emma learn how the legislative process works.
Yeah. Pretty much. Oh, good.
And another update about the redistricting. The districts have been redistricted. Well, I guess Governor Reeves still has to sign it. But both the House of Representatives and the Senate of Mississippi passed the Magnolia 1 redistricting plan last Wednesday.
Yeah, we don't really see any reason for him to veto it.
Yeah, and he said in the past that he likes the programs, or he likes the way that Republicans have redistricted the districts. So he's probably just going to go with them.
Yeah, most likely not going to be any difference in that. So
yeah.
It's probably just going to be fully passed.
Yeah, probably.
But that's all for story updates this week. Next up, we have Emma's Opinion Corner. Yay! My hot take this week, I already know that Heather's not going to agree with me on it, and that's kind of why I did it. But, so my hot take is that vinyl records shouldn't be modern music.
Nope, you're wrong.
So I just feel like there's a certain vibe to records that it needs to be kind of older. I don't know. It's just kind of something about it. I don't have like a technical reason for it. I know that, music's supposed to sound better on vinyl.
It does.
But I don't know, just something about it seems wrong. Like one of my friends gifted me an Olivia Rodrigo, like her album one, and I'm just like, thanks, but like it just doesn't feel right.
I don't know. I can see what you're saying, but also I love the way records sound. I have a bunch of old records, but I also have a bunch of new records, and I love them all so much.
Yeah, I don't have like a really passionate like this is why. I just feel like they should. And I know they do like a lot of ones that are old, but they're brand new.
Yeah.
Like they put out older ones that are just newly made.
Yeah, all the clean ones are pretty much like that.
Pretty much, yeah. But also I feel like those are getting kind of unaffordable at this point.
Yeah, the record pricing issue is bad. Like, it costs so much money for records, but also, like, older records are cheaper. I don't know. I love records. I have a lot of them.
I do too. Heather and I both have record players, so this is, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a lot of new records too, and I just think there is just a certain vibe. Like, when you put on a record, you're just like, yes. And I admit, not every album does need to be on record.
Not everyone deserves
it. But, like, my favorite people, yeah, they deserve to have a record. Okay, like, yeah. Taylor Swift. I have a bunch of Lanas.
I just bought a Grateful Dead one this past week. I had been looking for this album forever, but it'd been always just so unaffordable.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, I'm not paying $50 for that. But I went to Scooters this past weekend, and they had it there for like 20-something bucks. I was like,
nice.
Heck yeah.
Nice.
So I got that, and I'm very excited. I played it yesterday. It's great.
Yeah. They are so expensive. New ones are, because I go to Scooters all the time, and my records cost like $8 to $20 there, right? But the newer ones, I mean, he doesn't really sell like expensive newer ones, but
honestly, his prices are pretty.
They're very good. But newer ones like Taylor Swift's have all cost me a pretty penny.
But when you like order it from a website, it's usually pretty freaking pricey. Like I can name a couple of modern artists I would actually not mind having on there, but it's only because they seem like they're older. Like my boy Coulter Wall.
She just posted him today on Instagram.
Yes, I feel like he is record worthy. For some reason.
See, I feel like Taylor Swift is too, and I don't know, I just feel like the type of records that I buy are worthy, but like a rap record, that does not need to be a record. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah, like, no offense to those who like to listen to rap, but you don't need it on a record player. That's like actually sacrilegious.
I feel like that's not how you would want to listen to it anyway.
That's what I think too.
You would want to wear like headphones or like turn it up loud.
Yeah, or like in the car, it's like,
If you turn up the record player, I mean, it's only going to get so loud, but
yeah.
I mean, everybody's got choices, I guess.
I can see your point, but also I like that the music that I like to listen to, for the most part, can be available on vinyl. But I will say, what got me interested in vinyl records are old records. Mm-hmm. And I have mainly old ones because they've been gifted to me, or I bought them because they're a lot cheaper. I guess that's only 2 ways you can get something. So
usually, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the end of my hot take thought.
Yeah, I mean, that's the end of mine, too. That's just what I think. I don't know. It just feels wrong. Anyways, so that's all for the hot take. Next up is my film review for the week. So this one's actually not a movie. Oh. Surprise, surprise.
That's not allowed, Emma. Get out.
But this one was a short series. I ended up watching it all in one day with my mom.
Oh.
And it was on Netflix. It's not new either. It's called Living With Yourself, and it was 2019 when it came out. Well, 2019
might have been last year, so.
What?
I don't know where I was trying to go with that. But, anyway, it doesn't seem that far away.
It doesn't seem that far away, but it's 2022, so it was 3 years ago. Anyways, we watched it all in one sitting. My mom and I just decided we wanted to watch something while we were eating, and then we're like, this is actually kind of good. Let's just keep watching. And we ended up finishing it later that night. So it was directed by a guy named Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris. They're actually married. And they make stuff together on projects like Battle of the Sexes and Little Miss Sunshine.
Is that with, like... Hold on. I don't know how to explain it. Oh, never mind. I was thinking, isn't there like a little cartoon character or a doll who is Little Miss Sunshine? Like she has like a yellow face.
Maybe.
Oh, her!
Yes, okay.
That's what I was thinking of.
Alright, let's continue.
Okay.
Little Miss Sunshine. It stars Paul Rudd as the main character, a girl named Aisling Bea as his wife, Aaliyah Shawkat, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, Desmond Borges, and Karen Pittman.
You're doing amazing, sweetie.
I don't know if those are all how you pronounce it, but that's what I'm going with. So, what is it about?
Not the Slack
Not the Slack notification. So, what is it about? So, the plot is a man who is burnt out on life and love undergoes a mysterious treatment only to discover that he has been replaced by a better version of himself. Spoiler alert, but not really, because they say it in the first episode. It's his clone. So this thing is about cloning. So he goes into this kind of spa type thing. And when he's in the parking lot kind of deliberating, should I do it? Should I go forward? Because the guy from his work had said, oh, I went to the spa. I just feel so much better. Like, I used to be the shy person that, like, wouldn't be a go-getter. And he's like, I'm just great now.
Wait, how does the spa make you...
Just wait. And so he's like, whatever. He hates the guy, but he's like, I guess I'll try it. I can't find joy anywhere else. Might as well try it. It's like a hefty thing. It's like $50,000 to go to this thing. He's like, that seems a little far-fetched. But he got out the money anyway.
How does he have the money?
They had it in a savings account.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So... he shows up to the thing. He's sitting in his car, and he's like, God, should I do it? When he's sitting there, Tom Brady walks out all smiling and stuff, and he's like, oh, you're deliberating? This is like my 5th time or 6th time. And it's like, question mark? Like, okay. But Tom Brady's been cloned 6 times. That's basically what happened. Is what they were insinuating anyway. And so he's like, okay, if Tom Brady can do it, I guess I'll go forward with it. So he goes inside. They don't really tell him any details. It's very creepy. Then, like, all of a sudden, the 2 guys show up at the desk, and he's like, oh, hi. I thought I was, like, in the wrong place. And then they take him back to this room, and they kind of, like, don't tell him very much. He signs something, and then it cuts to him waking up in a grave. And, like, digging his way out of it. And then it cuts to another one who's, like, very happy, the go-lucky one. Apparently they had kind of a budget cut type thing in their thing. And usually they would dissolve them in acid, but since they weren't able to get the stuff from where they normally get it, they had just been burying the bodies and using, like, a gas to put them to sleep.
Wait, I'm confused. So the original person... dies, basically?
Yes.
And their clone goes to live with them?
And their clone is, like, rebirthed as their self with all their memories and stuff inside. All their memories, feelings, emotions, but they're new.
Does the clone know it's a clone?
No.
So, does the clone know that anything has changed?
No.
So it just picks up...
They just feel better. Because they're new. They literally just entered in the world. They're new selves. They're new everything.
Oh, interesting.
So, they, like, show up. But then the problem is there was still 2 of them. So it just kind of goes through all of that, of them dealing with each other and stuff. And just kind of how that plays out in humanity with the progress of, like, people trying to work in cloning. And
it's, like, low-key
like
creepy.
That.
Like, my
it
skin
is kind of creepy. It's kind of meant to be. But I thought it was very interesting. And it keeps you intrigued. And, of course, it's Paul Rudd. So it's pretty funny as well. Just to kind of see him yelling at himself. And then his other self yelling back at him.
I feel like he's tiny in this movie, but I guess it's not Ant-Man, so he's
not tiny.
I feel like he should be tiny in every movie. Like, no one says anything about it, he just is.
I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate that very much. Oh my god. So, yes, there's 2 of him. So, I don't know if y'all know, but obviously there's not 2 Paul Rudds. So, they had to do kind of different camera techniques for this.
Now it's time for cinematographer Emma.
I don't know too much about all this, but... they used it in Parent Trap, so how hard can it be?
Parent Trap is awesome.
I do love Parent Trap.
Don't talk it down.
It's great. I do love Parent Trap. But, I mean, you know, if Disney can do it, it was just a Disney Channel kind of movie. So it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. They really went all out for that.
Yeah, they really did. It was a good one. But, as I was saying, so they interviewed the creator of the show, Timothy Greenberg, and this was by Vulture. And he kind of goes into how they were able to do all of this. As you know, they do multiple takes of Paul Rudd doing each part. But he says, in its basic concept, the techniques we used are as old as filmmaking, usually. We did have this one machine that could move the camera around through an X, Y, and Z axis on a giant crane. And it would remember that and repeat it. That's one technique to use to move the camera around and still have people moving in the frame. A lot of them were some of the more typical kind of techniques you'd use, split screens and some other things, as we did some minimal face replacement. I don't want to say our VFX crew did nothing, because they did a lot, but it was a lot more like you would imagine doing it at home than you might think. So
cool. I had a thought, but I forgot. Maybe I can think of it.
So go ahead.
Sorry. Did Paul Rudd get paid more since he had to do 2 roles?
I didn't read into his salary, but I imagine he got paid more than his co-stars.
Because I'm just thinking that's like a lot of work.
Yeah, I imagine he got more than his co-stars. Because, I mean, they only played themselves. He had to play 2 versions of himself. So
they should just do these movies with actual twins so they can save a lot of time and money.
I know. But when they were talking about casting, that was one of the people that he envisioned being the character. Mm-hmm. So they're, I mean, obviously,
yeah, that makes sense.
He's not
sometimes.
A twin.
Yeah.
So
you and Andrew.
Yeah, that's how it works. You won't believe how many people ask my mom, "Are they identical?" Growing up, it's like, do you know what that word means? I don't think you do. But yeah, so that was what I watched this week. If you're looking for a quick watch, it's not too long. I'm not usually the type to usually binge watch much things, but I enjoyed this. And it's kind of creepy, but it's kind of fun at the same time. So I don't know if they're coming out with a season 2 or not. Honestly, I think it'd be better if they just kept it with season 1 and just kind of leave the ending a little open. But they were initially saying they were going to start it, but this was in 2019.
Oh, yeah.
Pre-pandemic. So I don't know if they'll ever do it, but honestly, I kind of say don't. Just leave it. Let people wonder what's going to happen. So, yeah. You should watch it, Heather. But
I will. Guys, actually, I'm watching Veep right now, which Emma didn't recommend it to me, but it is one of the shows that she likes.
It is one of my favorite TV shows.
We have that going on now.
Yeah.
I like watching stuff. Maybe I will.
Wow, isn't that crazy? Speaking of crazy, let's go to our crazy story of the week.
You kill me. So WJTV staff reports have a piece, and it's called "Construction Worker Dies on Accident on Livingston Road." So this was on January 11th, 2022. Listen to this lead, everybody. Jackson emergency crews responded to a report on Tuesday night that someone was buried in dirt at the intersection of Stonewall and Livingston Road.
Oh, wow.
So he was buried in dirt. So the Jackson Fire Department was called down there, and they ruled that the construction worker passed away after 20 feet of dirt fell on him. They attempted to rescue the man for hours before coming to this conclusion. The Hinds County coroner said the deceased was 33-year-old Matthew Miller and that he died of asphyxiation. The fire chief said that other workers were on site when the dirt collapsed on Miller, but they were able to escape unharmed.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
That's terrifying. Can you imagine?
Like, you're just...
Speaking of being buried, like in my other thing, now we have some real burial.
Oh, yeah. Like you're
geez.
just... You're just on the job. Like, with construction, I'm sure you do think of risk and stuff like that, but I feel like as you're digging a hole, you probably don't really think of risk of digging a hole because you're just digging a hole.
Yeah, I mean, they do have OSHA stuff, but like...
Yeah, OSHA was part of this too.
Nobody can prevent you from being just completely covered. Accidents happen. So.
Yeah. Well, it's very sad because like, you died at work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's so sad.
It is. It really is.
So, R.I.P. Matthew Miller.
Well, I'm sorry guys, we're not leaving you on a bright note again, but...
That's just how we do.
It's just how we do.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, on that note, that's all, folks, for that.
Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so we can get some feedback. And also, it helps us push higher in the ratings. We're just a little, we're going to promote ourselves. We'd like to get up in the ratings. So go ahead and do that. We would love that. 5 stars, please.
Please. You can also follow us on social media at On The Scene Pod on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok.
And you can also send us an email onthescenepod@gmail.com if you would like to be a guest star, sponsor the podcast, or if you have any questions, comments, or hot takes you would like us to talk about.
Yeah, and let us know if you're listening, because we always like to post to our story, so.
Yeah, if you have any comments about the episode, you can always comment on our Instagram, you can DM us, you can tweet at us, and we'll share that to our stories.
And we'll honestly probably talk about it in the next episode, because we get so excited.
Yeah, also, if you want to review us, like an actual written review, we can talk about that on the podcast, too. We can shout out somebody.
Yeah.
We would love to. Also, we want to make sure that you guys are following the Reflector. Our first paper comes out next Wednesday, so it'll be about a week from the time that you're listening to this. We're very excited. At Reflector Online for socials, reflector-online.com for your reading needs.
Yes. And that's all for this week.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Bye!